Say it again. Who here thinks she doesn't belong in coach? The armrest snaps under the pressure of a businessman's grip. Overhead bins rattle as the Boeing 737-800 cuts through turbulence somewhere over the mid-Atlantic. A plastic cup tumbles from a tray table, splashing water across the aisle. The cabin lights flicker once-twice, then hold. But the voltage dip leaves a sour metallic taste in the recycled air. Cassius Harlan stands in the aisle of business class, one hand braced against the bulkhead, the other pointing toward row 7. His voice carries over the hum of the engines loud enough that passengers 3 rows back turn to look. He's 50, silver-haired, wearing a charcoal suit that costs more than most people's monthly rent. His smile is the kind that doesn't reach his eyes. "I'm serious," he says louder now, enjoying the attention. Look at her. Wrinkled sweater discount luggage sitting in the cheapest seat on the plane. And she's got the nerve to look comfortable back there. A few passengers laugh nervously. Griffin Porter, a younger man in row 2, raises his phone and hits record. The red dot blinks in the dim cabin light. In seat 7C window side, emergency exit row, Amethyst Reed opens her eyes. She doesn't sit up, doesn't turn her head. Just opens her eyes and stares out the scratched oval window at the wing slicing through cloud. Her breathing doesn't change. 4 counts in, hold 7, out 8. The rhythm is mechanical precise, like she's counting something no one else can hear. Her right hand rests on the armrest. A thin scar runs along the inside of her wrist, pale against her dark skin. The calluses on her index and middle fingers catch the light when she shifts her grip. Cassius is still talking. People like that, they don't appreciate what it takes to fly. Probably never even been on a plane nicer than this. Amethyst blinks once slowly. Then she closes her eyes again and resumes counting the vibrations in the airframe. 12 per second. Slightly irregular. Atmospheric chop, not mechanical. Nothing to worry about. Not yet. Amethyst Reed looks like someone who's been traveling for 3 days straight because she has. The navy blue sweater she's wearing has a small pull near the left shoulder. Her jeans are faded at the knees. The canvas duffel bag stuffed under the seat in front of her has no brand logo, just a frayed strap and a zipper that sticks. She paid $217 for this ticket. Seat 7C, coach, no upgrades, no lounge access, no priority boarding. She was the last person to walk onto the plane, and she didn't complain when the overhead bins were already full. Just shoved her bag under 7B and sat down without a word. The woman in 7B, a nervous flyer with a toddler on her lap, had glanced at Amethyst once, then looked away quickly. People do that a lot. They see a black woman in her mid-30s traveling alone and make assumptions. Tired. Broke. Probably visiting family. Definitely not someone important. Amethyst doesn't mind. She learned a long time ago that being underestimated is a tactical advantage. The scar on her wrist is from a cockpit fire in 2019. The calluses are from 15 years of gripping a control stick through turbulence, evasive maneuvers, and emergency landings that shouldn't have been survivable. But no one on this plane knows that, and she's not about to tell them. Up in business class, Cassius Harlan is still holding court. You see what I mean? He gestures broadly, addressing the lawyer in 3A Julius Thatcher, a man with expensive glasses and a permanent frown. This airline used to have standards. Now they let anyone on board. Coach passengers mixing with premium travelers. It's chaos. Julius nods thoughtfully, as if Cassius has just made a profound point about aviation policy. Absolutely, Julius says. There's a reason we pay for business class. It's not just about the seat, it's about the experience, the caliber of passenger. Cassius grins. Exactly. I mean, look at her. He points again, more deliberately this time. That sweater probably came from a clearance rack, and she's sitting in the exit row like she's qualified to handle an emergency. Griffin Porter zooms in with his phone, capturing the back of Amethyst's head. She hasn't moved. Her hair is pulled into a low, tight bun, practical, unadorned. No jewelry except a plain black watch on her left wrist. The second hand ticks in perfect sync with her breathing. Mrs. Charity Weston, an older woman in 2D, leans toward her husband and whispers, but not quietly enough. She looks so young. Do you think she's even traveled internationally before? Her husband shrugs. Hard to say. Probably her first time out of the country. Amethyst's eyes are still closed, but her jaw tightens just for a fraction of a second. Then it relaxes. She's heard worse. She's been doubted by people with more authority and better reasons. A few strangers on a commercial flight don't register as a threat. What does register is the slight asymmetry in the engine noise. The left turbofan is running 0.3% hotter than the right. Nothing critical, but enough to notice if you know what to listen for. She opens her eyes and glances at the wing. Ice is starting to form on the leading edge. Not much, just a thin rime that catches the sunlight. The pilots will have noticed by now. They'll activate the anti-ice system soon. Probably. She counts the rows to the forward exit. 5. Then she counts the rows to the aft exit behind her. 8. If the cabin depressurizes, she has 9 seconds to get a mask on before useful consciousness ends. If there's a fire, she has 90 seconds to evacuate less if the aisle is blocked. These are not the thoughts of someone on vacation. Cassius laughs again louder now, emboldened by the attention. People like her probably never flew anything bigger than a crop duster. Julius chuckles. If that. Amethyst shifts slightly in her seat. The scar on her wrist disappears beneath her sleeve. The calluses press against the armrest, and somewhere deep in the airframe, the turbulence gets worse. The seatbelt sign chimes on with a soft ding, followed by the captain's voice over the intercom. Folks, this is Captain Desmond Kane up front. We're hitting a bit of weather here over the Atlantic. Nothing to worry about, but I'm going to ask everyone to return to their seats and keep those seatbelts fastened. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for moderate turbulence. The announcement is calm routine, but Amethyst hears the edge underneath it. The captain's breathing is slightly elevated. His vowels are clipped. He's not worried yet, but he's paying attention. She looks out the window again. The clouds have thickened. No longer the soft, feathery cumulus from an hour ago. Now they're dense gray, stacked in vertical towers that stretch up past the plane's cruising altitude. Cumulonimbus, storm cells, the kind of weather that turns a smooth flight into a roller coaster. The plane drops suddenly just a few feet, but enough to make several passengers gasp. A woman 2 rows back yelps. The toddler in 7B starts to whimper. Amethyst's expression doesn't change. She's counting again. Time between drops, frequency of the jolts, the way the airframe flexes under the stress. This isn't mechanical failure. It's wind shear. The plane is flying through columns of rising and sinking air, each one trying to push the aircraft in a different direction. The pilots are doing fine, for now. Up in business class, Cassius Harlan is not doing fine. He's gripping the armrest with both hands, his knuckles white. His wife, a thin woman with perfectly styled hair, is staring straight ahead, lips pressed into a tight line. When the plane drops again, Cassius swears under his breath. "This is ridiculous," he mutters. "I paid $15,000 for these seats. This airline is garbage." Ivy Chandler, the lead flight attendant, appears at his side. She's in her mid-30s, calm and professional, with the kind of voice that can soothe a panicking passenger or shut down a drunk one with equal efficiency. "Mr. Harlan, I understand your concern, but the captain is handling the situation. I need you to remain seated with your seatbelt fastened." "I want to speak to the captain," Cassius says. "Right now." "That's not possible during turbulence, sir." "I don't care. I want answers. And while you're at it, I want my wife moved to first class. There's an empty seat up there. I saw it when we boarded." Ivy's smile doesn't waver. "I'm sorry, sir, But that seat is reserved for crew rest. I can't reassign it. Reserved for crew rest. Cassius's voice rises. Are you serious? My wife is sitting here terrified, and you're telling me a flight attendant gets priority over a paying customer. Sir, please lower your voice. This airline lets anyone fly. Cassius says loud enough that half the cabin hears him. No standards, no accountability. Just pack people in like cattle and hope for the best. Ivy's jaw tightens, but she keeps her tone level. Mr. Harlan, if you continue to disrupt the cabin, I'll have to file a report with the captain. Please, sit down. Cassius glares at her, but he sits. His wife doesn't look at him. Back in row 7, Amethyst is still watching the wing. The ice is spreading. The leading edge is now covered in a thin, uneven layer of frost. The pilots should have activated the anti-ice system by now. Maybe they did, and it's not enough. Or maybe they're waiting to see if the conditions improve. Either way, it's a problem. She reaches up and checks the oxygen mask compartment above her seat. The panel is secure. No cracks, no gaps. If it drops, it'll drop clean. She estimates she can get it on in 4 seconds. 3 if she doesn't waste time fumbling with the strap. The woman in 7B notices her checking and frowns. Is something wrong? She asks nervously. Amethyst glances at her. No, just making sure everything's in place. Oh. The woman doesn't look reassured. You've flown a lot, haven't you? Yeah, Amethyst says. A lot. She doesn't elaborate. The woman nods and goes back to soothing her toddler. Amethyst closes her eyes and breathes. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. The turbulence is getting worse. When the next jolt hits, it's harder than the others. The plane lurches sideways wings, tilting sharply to the left. Overhead bins pop open. A carry-on bag tumbles into the aisle with a heavy thud. Someone screams. The lights flicker again longer this time, and for a moment the cabin is bathed in the pale emergency lighting that runs along the floor. Then the main lights come back on. The captain's voice returns tighter now. Folks, we're working through some weather here. Please remain seated. Flight attendants stay strapped in. Ivy Chandler is halfway down the aisle when the announcement comes. She braces herself against a seat back and makes her way to the nearest jump seat, buckling in quickly. Her eyes scan the cabin, counting passengers, checking for injuries. Everyone's seated. No blood. No panic yet. Amethyst's seatbelt is already fastened. But not the way most passengers wear it loose across the lap, comfortable enough to forget about. Hers is cinched tight low across her hips, exactly where it needs to be to keep her spine aligned during a hard impact. The strap crosses her chest at a diagonal clipped into a secondary anchor point that most people don't even know exists. It's the way military pilots wear their harnesses. 5-point restraint adapted for a civilian seat. The woman in 7B glances over and frowns. How did you... Amethyst doesn't answer. She reaches up and gently pulls the oxygen mask compartment door, testing the hinge. It swings open smoothly, the mask dangling on its elastic tubing. She pushes it back into place without putting it on, just checking, making sure it's functional. The woman stares. Why are you doing that? Habit, Amethyst says quietly. What kind of habit? Amethyst doesn't elaborate. She's watching the flight attendant now, noting the tension in Ivy's posture, the way her eyes keep flicking toward the cockpit door. Something's wrong. Not catastrophic, not yet, but wrong enough that the crew is on edge. The plane drops again. This time, it's not a jolt, it's a fall. A sickening stomach-in-your-throat plunge that lasts 3 full seconds before the wings catch air again. The toddler in 7B starts crying. Across the aisle, an elderly man grips his wife's hand so hard his fingers go white. And Amethyst mutters something under her breath. 7700. It's barely audible. Just a whisper more to herself than anyone else. But Garrett Sullivan, the man in 8C 3 rows back aisle seat, hears it. He's 60 years old, gray-haired, wearing a faded Air Force veteran's cap. He flew cargo planes in the 90s, C-130s, mostly before retiring and taking a job as a contractor. He knows the sound of military jargon when he hears it. 7700, squawk code 7700, emergency transponder, the code you punch into the aircraft's radio when everything's gone to hell and you need every controller in the sky to know you're in trouble. Garrett leans forward slightly, trying to get a better look at the woman in 7C. She's not panicking. She's not praying. She's not clutching the armrest or crying or doing any of the things people do when they think they're about to die. She's assessing. Her eyes move methodically. Window, wing, ice accumulation, cabin lights, oxygen panel, exit door. She's running a checklist in her head, the kind of checklist that doesn't come from a safety card in the seat back pocket. Garrett frowns. He's seen that look before, on pilots, on aircrew, on people who've trained for scenarios that most passengers don't even want to think about. But before he can say anything, the plane shudders violently and the cabin fills with the high-pitched whine of overstressed metal. The wings flex, visibly alarmingly, and for a moment it feels like the entire airframe might just fold in half. Then it stabilizes. Cassius Harlan's voice cuts through the cabin high and tight with fear. This is insane. Somebody needs to do something. Julius Thatcher. The lawyer nods rapidly. He's right. This is beyond acceptable. I'm going to file a complaint the moment we land. Griffin Porter is still filming his phone, shaking in his hand. This is crazy, he mutters into the camera. We're literally about to crash and they're acting like it's normal. Amethyst pulls a worn paperback from the seat back pocket in front of her, something generic, a thriller she picked up at the airport, and opens it to a random page. She doesn't read. Just stares at the words using the book as a shield to avoid eye contact. But her right hand stays on the armrest, and her fingers tap a rhythm against the plastic. Not nervous fidgeting, something else, a pattern. Tap, tap, pause, tap, 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 pause, Morse code. Garrett catches it. His eyes narrow. SOS. She's not panicking. She's preparing. And that's when Garrett realizes whoever this woman is, she's not just a passenger. The turbulence doesn't ease. It gets worse. The plane slams through another air pocket, and this time the drop is so violent that luggage explodes from the overhead bins. A laptop case hits the ceiling, bounces off a headrest, and skids down the aisle. Passengers scream. The toddler in 7B is wailing now, her mother clutching her so tight the child's face is pressed into her shoulder. The engine noise changes, not loud or different. A grinding, uneven roar that makes the airframe vibrate in a way it shouldn't. Something in the left turbofan is off balance, fighting against the airflow, and the whole plane feels like it's trying to tear itself apart from the inside. Cassius Harlan unbuckles his seatbelt and stands up. "That's it," he says, voice cracking. "I'm not sitting here while this plane falls apart. I've flown in worse weather than this. I demand to speak to the captain." Ivy Chandler is on her feet, instantly moving toward him with her hands raised. "Mr. Harlan, you need to sit down right now." "No." Cassius's face is red sweat beading on his forehead. "I paid $15,000 for these seats. I have a right to know what's going on up there." Julius Thatcher unbuckles as well, standing beside Cassius, like a lawyer flanking a witness. He's correct. As passengers, we have the right to be informed of any safety concerns. This is a matter of transparency. Griffin Porter is filming again, phone held high. "Yeah," he says, emboldened by the crowd. "Passengers have rights. We deserve answers." Ivy steps between them and the cockpit door. "Gentlemen, the captain is managing the situation. Interfering with the flight crew is a federal offense. Sit down." "I'm not interfering," Cassius snaps. "I'm helping. I've logged over 300 hours in private aircraft. I know how to fly. And right now, I'm the only person on this plane who can do something useful." Several passengers murmur in agreement. A man in row 4 nods. Mrs. Charity Weston clutches her husband's arm and whispers, "Maybe he's right. Maybe they need help." The cabin is a pressure cooker. Fear adrenaline and bad decision-making compressed into a metal tube at 38,000 feet. And through it all, Amethyst sits in 7C watching. Her eyes flick to the seat-back screen in front of her. Most passengers don't pay attention to the flight information display, altitude, speed, outside temperature. But she does. And what she sees makes her jaw tighten. Cabin pressure, 8,200 feet equivalent, normal for cruise. But the rate of change is too fast. The pressurization system is struggling to compensate for something. A micro leak maybe, or a valve that's not sealing properly. She looks out the window. The ice on the leading edge is worse now. It's not a thin rime anymore. It's a jagged, uneven buildup that's disrupting the airflow over the wing. The anti-ice system should have cleared it by now. Either it's not working or the pilots turned it off to conserve power. Bad call if that's the case. She counts her breaths. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. Cassius is still arguing with Ivy. "I don't care what the regulations say. I'm going up there and you're not going to stop me. Sir, if you take one more step toward that door, I will have you restrained." "With what plastic handcuffs?" Cassius laughs bitterly. "You think I'm the problem here? The pilots are the problem. They're in over their heads and everyone on this plane is going to pay for it." Julius nods gravely. He has a point. Perhaps it's time for someone with actual experience to intervene. Griffin raises his phone higher, making sure to get Cassius's face in frame. "This is going viral," he mutters. "Passenger saves plane. Classic." And that's when the plane drops again, harder than before. The wings tilt 40 degrees to the right. The nose pitches down. For 3 long seconds, it feels like the aircraft is in free fall, like gravity has finally won and the laws of aerodynamics have just given up. Then the autopilot kicks in, and the plane levels out with a sickening lurch that throws Cassius into the bulkhead. He catches himself barely and stumbles back into his seat, face pale. The cabin erupts in screams. Ivy grabs the intercom. "Captain, we need an update, now." There's no response. She tries again. "Captain Kane, please respond." Nothing. The silence is worse than the turbulence. If you're as frustrated as I am right now, smash that like button and subscribe because you won't believe what happens when the captain goes silent. Shiorn. Amethyst's eyes narrow. She's listening to the engine noise again, filtering out the screams and the crying and the panicked voices. The left engine is running rough. RPM fluctuations, temperature spiking. It's not failing yet, but it's close. And the cockpit isn't answering. Garrett Sullivan, the veteran in 8C, leans forward and catches her eye. He mouths 2 words, "You know?" Amethyst doesn't respond, but she doesn't look away either. Cassius is on his feet again, angrier now, adrenaline overriding fear. See, they're not answering because they don't know what to do. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Incompetence. Julius stands beside him. "We need to take action. Legally, in a life-threatening situation, passengers have the right to self-preservation." "Exactly," Cassius says. "I'm going in there. And anyone who tries to stop me is complicit in whatever happens next." Ivy looks at the cockpit door, then back at Cassius. Her training says to keep passengers out of the flight deck at all costs, but her instincts are screaming that something is very, very wrong. The intercom crackles to life, but it's not the captain's voice. It's younger, shakier. "This is First Officer Ronan Fletcher. We have a medical situation up here. If there's anyone on board with aviation experience, please identify yourself immediately." The cabin goes silent. Cassius's eyes light up. "That's me. I'm coming up." He pushes past Ivy and strides toward the cockpit door. And in seat 7C, Amethyst Reed closes her eyes and takes one long, slow breath. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. Then she unbuckles her seatbelt and stands up. The cockpit door opens, and Ivy steps through first. Her face, when she comes back out 3 seconds later, is the color of old paper. "We need a doctor," she says, voice tight, "and anyone with real aviation experience." The captain is unconscious. The words hit the cabin like a physical blow. For a moment, no one moves. No one breathes. The plane is flying itself on autopilot through a storm that's getting worse by the minute, and the only person qualified to land it is slumped over the controls. Then Cassius Harlan steps forward. "I'm a licensed private pilot. 300 hours multi-engine rating. I can help." Julius Thatcher claps him on the shoulder. "Go. Do what you have to do." Griffin Porter is filming again, narrating into his phone. Holy shit. The captain's down. This random business class guy might actually save us. A few passengers start clapping nervous, desperate applause, like they're willing Cassius to be the hero they need. Cassius straightens his tie and walks toward the cockpit like he's entering a boardroom negotiation. And then Amethyst moves. She doesn't run, doesn't shout, just steps into the aisle and starts walking toward the front of the plane, her movements calm and deliberate. Cassius sees her coming and stops. "Whoa, whoa, where do you think you're going?" Amethyst doesn't answer. She just keeps walking. "Hey." Cassius steps in front of her, blocking the aisle. "I'm talking to you. The flight attendant asked for someone with experience. That's me, not you." Amethyst stops, looks at him. Her expression is unreadable. "Hold on, lady," Cassius says, voice hardening. "This isn't a game. People's lives are at stake. You can't just walk into a cockpit because you feel like it. Show me your credentials." Amethyst doesn't reach for a wallet, doesn't pull out a pilot's license, just stands there silent while the plane shudders around them. Julia steps forward. "She has a point, sir. We need documentation, proof of qualification. Otherwise, we're just letting random passengers into the flight deck, and that's how people die." Griffin zooms in on Amethyst's face. "Yeah, who even is this lady? She looks like she just woke up from a nap." Mrs. Charity Weston calls out from business class. She's been sitting in coach the whole time. Surely someone from business class would be more qualified. The murmurs spread. Passengers who were silent 10 minutes ago are now whispering, speculating, judging. A woman in 9D shakes her head. She doesn't look like a pilot. She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't have to. Ivy hesitates, caught between protocol and desperation. "Ma'am, I need to ask, do you have any formal aviation training?" Amethyst's voice, when she finally speaks, is quiet, steady. "Yes." "Can you prove it?" Amethyst doesn't answer. The cockpit door opens wider, and Ronan Fletcher leans out. He's 28, blonde, with the kind of face that still looks too young to be trusted with a commercial aircraft. Right now, he looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. His eyes sweep the cabin land on Cassius, then flick to Amethyst. "Who's coming in?" Cassius steps forward. "I am. Private pilot, multi-engine rating, 300 hours. I can assist." Ronan looks at Amethyst. "And you, ma'am?" "She doesn't have credentials," Cassius interrupts. "I already asked." Ronan's gaze lingers on Amethyst for another moment. He's trying to read her, trying to figure out if she's a lunatic, a liability, or something else. What he sees is someone who isn't shaking, isn't sweating, isn't doing any of the things people do when they're terrified. But he also sees someone without a uniform, without documentation, without any visible proof that she belongs anywhere near a cockpit, and in a crisis-proof matters. "Ma'am," Ronan says carefully, "with all due respect, we need someone with documented experience. Commercial aviation is very different from—" "I understand," Amethyst says quietly. She takes a step back, then another. Cassius's face splits into a triumphant grin. Smart choice. Leave this to the professionals. He brushes past her and steps through the cockpit door. Julius gives him a thumbs up. Griffin keeps filming. The door closes. Amethyst stands in the aisle for a moment alone. Passengers are staring at her, some with relief, some with pity, some with barely concealed contempt. Garrett Sullivan, the veteran in 8C, catches her eye again. He shakes his head slowly. Wrong call, his expression says. They just made the wrong call. Amethyst walks back to her seat, sits down, buckles her seatbelt tight, diagonal 5-point adapted, and waits, because she knows something no one else in the cabin knows. In about 90 seconds, Cassius Harlan is going to realize he has no idea what he's doing, and when that happens, everyone on this plane is going to need her. The only question is whether they'll let her help before it's too late. Inside the cockpit, Ronan Fletcher is losing control. Captain Desmond Kane is slumped in the left seat, unresponsive. His head lolls to the side, mouth slack skin, gray. A thin line of drool runs from the corner of his lips. His hands are twitching small, involuntary spasms that send his fingers jerking against the armrest. Dr. Serenity Blake, a cardiac surgeon who happened to be in business class, is kneeling beside him, 2 fingers pressed to his neck, counting pulse. She's 45, composed with the kind of calm that comes from spending 20 years in operating rooms where seconds matter. Pulse is weak and irregular, she says. Pupils unequal, left side non-reactive. This is a stroke, maybe hemorrhagic. He needs a hospital. Now, Ronan's voice cracks. We're 40 minutes from the nearest airport. Then get us there in 30. I don't... Ronan swallows hard. I've only got 400 hours. I've never handled an emergency like this, not alone. Cassius Harlan is standing behind the center console hands braced on the back of the captain's seat, staring at the instrument panel like it's written in a foreign language. Because, in a way, it is. The Boeing 737-800 cockpit is not a Cessna. It's not a Piper. It's a cathedral of screen switches, dials, and warning lights, each one connected to systems that Cassius has never seen, let alone operated. Ronan glances at him. Sir, have you ever flown a jet? Well, no. But the principles are the same right stick throttle rudder. It's not the same. Ronan's voice is thin. The engines alone, there's a startup sequence, a shutdown sequence, fuel management thrust reversers. I can handle it, Cassius says, but his voice wavers. He reaches for the control yoke, then hesitates, fingers hovering over the grip. Which one controls pitch? Ronan stares at him. You don't know. I look in a Cessna, it's intuitive. This is just more buttons. It's not more buttons. Ronan's voice is rising now, panic bleeding through. It's a completely different aircraft. If you don't know the systems, you can't. The radio crackles. Flight 492, this is Boston Center. We show you deviating off course. Confirm heading and altitude. Ronan grabs the mic. Boston Center Flight 492. We have a medical emergency. Captain is incapacitated. Requesting priority handling and vectors to nearest suitable airport. There's a pause. Then, Flight 492, copy medical emergency. Be advised, Category 4 storm system is moving into your area. Baltimore-Washington International is closing runways. Recommend divert to Dover Air Force Base. Can you accept military field? Ronan looks at the weather radar. The screen is a sea of red and orange storm cells stacked like walls, each one 50,000 feet tall, stretching from the surface to the edge of space. And they're flying straight into it. Dover AFB, Ronan says. Yes, we'll take it. Flight 492. Roger. Descend and maintain flight level 240. Vectors forthcoming. Be advised Dover is ILS equipped, but you'll need single-engine approach clearance if you lose thrust. Confirm you're familiar with the procedure. Ronan's mouth goes dry. Stand by. He looks at Cassius. Do you know single-engine approach procedure? Cassius's face is white. What's that? Ronan stops himself. Never mind, I'll handle it. But he doesn't sound confident. Dr. Blake looks up from the captain. He's seizing. I need to stabilize his airway. Do you have a medical kit? Under the jump seat, Ronan says. She grabs it, pulls out an oropharyngeal airway, and slides it into the captain's mouth to keep his tongue from blocking his throat. His body jerks once hard, then goes still. Is he... Ronan can't finish the question. Still alive, Dr. Blake says. But not for long if we don't get him to a trauma center. Cassius is staring at the throttle levers. There are two of them, each one controlling a separate engine. He knows that much. But the gauges N1, N2, EGT fuel flow, they're a blur of numbers that don't mean anything to him. Which button turns off the alarm? He asks. Ronan looks at him incredulous. What alarm? The beeping. It's driving me crazy. That's the altitude alert. It means we're deviating from our assigned flight level. You don't turn it off, you fix the problem. Cassius steps back, hands raised. Okay. You're the expert. I'll just observe. Ronan wants to scream. Instead, he takes a breath and focuses on the panel. Fuel gauge 45 minutes remaining. Weather radar solid red ahead. Altitude 38,000 feet and holding. For now. The plane shudders. A new alarm sounds a low, insistent chime. Ronan's eyes flick to the engine instruments. Left engine temperature is climbing. Not critical yet, but close. Come on, he whispers. Just hold together. Please. Outside the cockpit, the storm is waiting. In the cabin, the passengers are fracturing into camps. Some are praying. Some are crying. Some are on their phones typing out goodbye messages they're not sure we'll ever send. And some are getting angry. Garrett Sullivan unbuckles his seatbelt and stands up. His voice when he speaks is loud enough to carry over the engine noise. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. Heads turn. Griffin Porter swivels his phone toward Garrett. What? Someone asks. The businessman, Garrett says. Cassius, whatever his name is. He doesn't know what he's doing. I flew cargo in the Air Force for 15 years. I recognize panic when I see it. And that man is panicking. Ivy Chandler moves toward him. Sir, please sit down. No. Garrett's voice is firm. People need to know. We just put a guy who's never flown a jet into the cockpit of a commercial airliner during a storm. That's not bravery. That's suicide. Murmurs ripple through the cabin, doubt spreading like a crack in glass. Mrs. Charity Weston leans toward her husband. He has a point. That man looked terrified. Julius Thatcher stands up. Now hold on. Mr. Harlan is a licensed pilot. He has the credentials. Credentials don't mean shit if you don't know the aircraft. Garrett snaps. Flying a Cessna is like driving a Honda. Flying a 737 is like driving a freight train. If he doesn't know the difference, we're all going to die. The cabin erupts in overlapping voices, fear, anger, desperation. And through it all, Amethyst sits in 7C silent, until she isn't. Tell the co-pilot to squawk 7700. Her voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the noise like a blade. Everyone stops, turns, stares. What did you say? Ivy asks. Amethyst stands up slowly. Tell the co-pilot to squawk 7700. Declare pan-pan. Request vectors to Dover Air Force Base. Ivy blinks. How do you just do it? There's something in her voice. Not authority exactly, but certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from having said those words before, many times. Ivy hesitates for only a second. Then she picks up the intercom and relays the message. In the cockpit, Ronan hears it and freezes. Squawk 7700, he says aloud. That's emergency transponder. Do it, Dr. Blake says. If someone out there knows what they're talking about, listen to them. Ronan reaches for the transponder panel and dials in 7700. The moment he does, every air traffic controller within 300 miles gets a bright red alert on their screens. Flight 492 Boston Center, we see your squawk. Declaring emergency on your behalf. All traffic is being cleared. You have priority. Ronan exhales. Copy. Requesting vectors to Dover AFB. Roger, Flight 492. Turn left heading 090. Descend and maintain 10,000. Emergency equipment is being notified. The plane banks smoothly. The autopilot responds. And for the first time in 10 minutes, Ronan feels like he can breathe. He glances back at Cassius, who's gripping the edge of the console knuckles white. See, Cassius says, voice shaking. I've got this under control. Ronan doesn't argue, but he knows the truth. The person who just saved them isn't in the cockpit. She's sitting in 7C, and she hasn't said another word. The alarm is deafening. It starts as a low warble, then ramps up into a high-pitched shriek that drowns out everything else. The engines, the voices, even the sound of the storm battering the fuselage. Fire warning. Engine 2. Red lights flood the cockpit. Ronan's hands fly across the panel eyes, scanning the engine instruments. Right engine number 2. Exhaust gas temperature spiking. N1 dropping. Thrust falling off. Engine failure, he shouts. Engine 2 is failing. Cassius stumbles backward, hands over his ears. What's happening? We're losing the right engine. Ronan's voice cracks. I need to shut it down before it catches fire. Then do it. I don't. Ronan's hands hover over the fuel cutoff lever. I've never done this outside a simulator. If I screw this up, just do it. Ronan pulls the lever. The fuel flow to engine 2 cuts off. The fire warning stops. But now the plane is flying on one engine, and it's tilting hard to the right. Cassius grabs the control yoke and pulls, trying to level the wings. The plane doesn't respond. Or rather, it responds wrong, pitching up nose, rising speed, bleeding off. Stop, Ronan yells. You're stalling us. I'm trying to let go of the yoke. Cassius releases it. Ronan grabs the trim wheel and rolls it forward, compensating for the asymmetric thrust. The plane levels out barely. And then a voice comes through the intercom. Calm. Precise. Ronan, cut fuel to engine 2. Activate fire suppression. Trim for single-engine flight. Do it now. Ronan's already done the first two. But the voice, the way she says it, makes him realize he's missed something. He adjusts the rudder trim, compensating for the yaw. The plane stabilizes. Cassius spins toward the intercom. Who the hell is giving orders? Get her off the line. She just saved us. Ronan snaps. She's a passenger. She has no authority here. In the cabin, Dr. Blake's voice cuts through the chaos. He's coding, I need a defibrillator. Captain Kane's body goes rigid. His back arches. His eyes roll back. There's no AED, Ivy shouts. We don't have one. Dr. Blake starts CPR, hands locked over Kane's sternum, pumping hard and fast. Then someone needs to land this plane in the next 10 minutes, or he's dead. Ronan looks at the weather radar. The screen is solid red. Hail. Lightning. Wind shear. A wall of storm cells 40 miles wide, and they're flying straight into it. He checks the fuel. 38 minutes remaining. He checks the distance to Dover. 40 minutes of flight time. They don't have enough fuel. They don't have enough time. They don't have enough engines. And the person who might actually be able to save them is sitting in coach silent, waiting for someone to ask. But no one's asking. The cabin lights flicker, then go out. Emergency lighting kicks in dim red strips along the floor, casting everything in a hellish glow. Something cracks, a sharp, brittle snap that echoes through the fuselage. One of the windows, row 6 starboard side, has a hairline fracture running across the acrylic. Hail damage, microfracture. Not critical yet, but it's growing. The wind howls through the gap, a low, keening scream. And in the cockpit, Cassius Harlan is gripping the edge of the console, staring at the instruments, realizing finally horribly that he is in over his head. We're going to die, he whispers. Ronan doesn't answer, because he's starting to think Cassius might be right. Drop a comment right now. Do you think she can save them, or is it already too late? Let me know what you'd do in her seat. The cabin is dark. The engines roar unevenly. The storm is a living thing outside trying to claw its way in. And Amethyst Reed unbuckles her seatbelt, stands up, and walks toward the cockpit. Her face is expressionless, but her eyes sharp-focused, burning with something that might be determination or might be fury, are brighter than the emergency lights. No one tries to stop her this time, because deep down everyone knows she's the only chance they have left. The cockpit door swings open. Amethyst doesn't knock, doesn't ask permission, just steps inside, closes the door behind her, and surveys the scene with the kind of clinical detachment that makes Ronan's stomach flip. Captain Kane is on the floor now. Dr. Blake straddling his chest, hands locked, pumping rhythmically. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, repeat. The captain's face is gray lips blue. He's not coming back anytime soon. Cassius is pressed against the side console, eyes wide, sweat soaking through his shirt. His hands are shaking. He looks like a man who's just realized he's drowning, and there's no bottom beneath his feet. Ronan is in the right seat co-pilot position, white-knuckling the control yoke, trying to keep the plane level on one engine while the autopilot fights against the asymmetric thrust. Amethyst takes it all in. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she speaks. Sir, you need to move to the jump seat. I'll guide the co-pilot. Her voice is calm, flat. The kind of voice that doesn't expect to be questioned. Cassius blinks at her. What? Jump seat, now. I'm not taking orders from coach class. His voice cracks on the last word. You don't even have a uniform. You're not... Mr. Harlan. Ronan's voice cuts through sharp and desperate. Engine 2 is dead. We're flying on one engine through hail. Either let her help or we all die. Cassius stares at him. Then at Amethyst. Then at the instruments. The red warnings. The blinking alerts. The weather radar screen that looks like someone poured blood across it. He's out of his depth. He knows it. Everyone knows it. Fine, he mutters, stumbling toward the jump seat behind the center console. He collapses into it, face-red hands gripping the harness strap so tight his knuckles go white. But if this goes wrong, it won't, Amethyst says. She slides into the captain's seat. No hesitation, no adjustment period. Just sits down, reaches for the harness, and clips herself in with movements so smooth they look rehearsed. Because they are. Her hands move across the panel. Left hand on the throttle, single engine now, so only the left lever matters. Right hand on the control yoke. Eyes scanning the primary flight display, the navigation display, the engine instruments. Ronan, she says, call out fuel state. He checks the gauge. 36 minutes remaining. Distance to Dover. 39 nautical miles, about 25 minutes at current speed. Not enough fuel for a hold pattern. We get one approach. That's it. Ronan nods, throat dry. Amethyst's fingers move to the autopilot panel. She disengages altitude hold, engages heading select, and dials in a new course 0905 away from the worst of the storm cells. Requesting vectors from ATC, she says. Tell them we need immediate clearance around the hail core at bearing 120. Ronan grabs the radio. Boston Center Flight 492, requesting vectors to avoid weather. Hail core bearing 120 from our position. Flight 492, roger. Turn left, heading 080. Descend and maintain 8,000. Expect vectors for Dover ILS runway 01. Amethyst banks the plane smoothly. The single engine roars, compensating for the lost thrust on the right. She adjusts the rudder trim, fine, precise movements that keep the nose centered despite the imbalance. The plane slides through a gap in the storm. The turbulence eases. The hail stops hammering the fuselage. For the first time in 20 minutes, the ride is almost smooth. Ronan exhales. How did you... Weather radar Amethyst says, nodding at the screen. There's always a gap. You just have to find it. Cassius leans forward from the jump seat, face still pale. Okay, fine. You know what you're doing. But that doesn't change the fact that you're not authorized to be here. When we land, Amethyst says quietly, you can file whatever report you want. Right now, sit down and be quiet. Cassius's mouth opens, then closes. He sits back silent. Dr. Blake looks up from the captain's sweat dripping down her face. He's stable. Barely. Pulse is weak but present. If we get him to a hospital in the next 15 minutes, he might make it. 15 minutes, Amethyst repeats. She checks the distance to Dover again. We'll make it. Ronan looks at her. Really looks at her. The way her hands move over the controls. The way her eyes track across the instruments without hesitation. The way she breathes steady, measured like she's done this 1,000 times before. Who are you? He asks. Amethyst doesn't answer. She just flies. Outside the cockpit, Garrett Sullivan is standing near the door, watching through the small reinforced window. He can't hear what's being said inside, but he can see the way Amethyst moves. The way she adjusts the aileron trim with her left hand while her right stays locked on the yoke. The way she compensates for the single-engine yaw without even thinking about it. He's seen that before. That's F-16 single-engine procedure, he mutters. Ivy Chandler is beside him, arms crossed, still shaken from the chaos of the last half hour. What? The way she's trimming the aircraft, Garrett says, nodding toward the cockpit. That's not commercial technique. That's fighter jet procedure. Asymmetric thrust compensation. You don't learn that flying Boeings. Where the hell did she learn it then? Garrett doesn't answer. Because he doesn't know. But he's starting to have an idea. Back in row 7, Griffin Porter is on his knees in the aisle, rummaging through Amethyst's belongings. Her duffel bag is half open under seat 7B, and in the chaos, no one stopped him from searching it. What are you doing? The woman in 7B asks, clutching her toddler. Looking for proof, Griffin says. If she's really a pilot, she'll have credentials, a license, something. He pulls out a worn hoodie, a paperback novel, a water bottle, and then a coin. It's small, heavy, made of brass or bronze. One side has an engraved image, a fighter jet, sleek, angular, unmistakably military. Below it, a single word, Falcon. Griffin flips it over. The other side has a number 7. And below that, in smaller text, USAF Combat Rescue. What the hell? Griffin whispers. He holds it up, showing it to the passengers around him. Julius Thatcher leans over from his seat in business class, squinting. Is that military? I don't know, Griffin says. But it's got her name on it. Or something. He pockets the coin, pulls out his phone, and starts Googling. USAF Combat Rescue. Falcon. Call sign. The results load. Slowly service is spotty at altitude, but when they do, his eyes widen. Holy shit, he breathes. Mrs. Charity Weston leans forward. What does it say? Griffin doesn't answer. He's reading, scrolling. His face has gone from skeptical to pale. She's not just a pilot, he says finally. She's a colonel. What? Colonel, U.S. Air Force. Combat Rescue. It says here she's saved. He scrolls again. 19 aircraft. 19. The cabin goes silent. Julius Thatcher stands up, face red. That's impossible. If she's a colonel, why was she sitting in coach? Why didn't she say anything? I don't know, Griffin says. But this coin is real. And according to this, he holds up his phone. Call sign Falcon 7 is one of the most decorated pilots in military history. Cassius's voice crackles over the intercom from the cockpit, shrill and defensive. Anyone can buy a coin online. This doesn't prove anything. She could have memorized procedures from YouTube. But his voice lacks conviction, because even he's starting to realize he's been wrong, catastrophically, humiliatingly wrong. Garrett turns to Ivy. You need to make an announcement. Tell people who she is. I don't know who she is, Ivy says. Then find out. Ivy hesitates. Then she picks up the intercom handset and presses the button for the cockpit. Ma'am, she says carefully. The passengers are asking questions. They want to know. Tell them to sit down and stay quiet. Amethyst's voice comes back calm and clipped. We're not out of this yet. Ivy releases the button, looks at Garrett. She's not going to tell us. Then we'll find out when we land, Garrett says. If we land. He glances out the window. The storm is still there, circling like a predator. They've escaped the worst of it, but only temporarily, and the fuel gauge is still dropping. The radio crackles. Flight 492, this is Boston Center. We need to confirm pilot in command, full name and license number for emergency clearance. Ronan glances at Amethyst. She's focused on the approach plate, a diagram of Dover Air Force Base's runway layout displayed on the navigation screen. Ma'am, Ronan prompts. Amethyst doesn't look up. Tell them to stand by. They need confirmation now. Then tell them I'm transmitting on guard. Ronan frowns. Guard 121.5. Ronan's hand freezes on the radio dial. Well, 121.5 MHz, the emergency frequency. Military aircraft monitor it constantly. Civilian controllers monitor it. It's the channel you use when everything's gone to hell and you need everyone to hear you. You want to broadcast on guard? Ronan asks, uncertain. Yes. He switches the frequency. The channel hisses with static, empty waiting. Amethyst reaches for the radio handset. Her voice when she speaks is different. Not louder, not harder, just certain. Like she's speaking a language she hasn't used in a while, but knows by heart. Falcon 7 requesting priority handling. Single engine, medical emergency. Souls on board 312. The silence that follows is so complete, Ronan can hear his own heartbeat. Then, Falcon 7, this is Boston Center. Say again, call sign. Falcon 7. Another pause. Longer this time. Falcon 7, stand by for authentication. Ronan looks at her. What's happening? They're checking my credentials, Amethyst says. How you didn't give them a license number. I gave them my call sign. That's enough. In the cabin, Julius Thatcher is on his feet, face red, shouting toward the cockpit door. This is insane. She's using military frequencies. That's illegal. That's impersonating an officer. Griffin is filming again, narrating breathlessly. She just called herself Falcon 7. The same call sign from the coin. If she's lying, we're about to get intercepted by fighter jets. Mrs. Charity Weston clutches her husband's arm. Are we going to be arrested? I don't know, he whispers. Garrett Sullivan stands near the cockpit, arms crossed, waiting. He knows what's coming next, and he knows it's going to shut everyone up. The radio crackles again. Falcon 7 Boston Center, we show you on radar. Confirm your authentication when ready. Amethyst's response is immediate. Tango Bravo 7 Niner Kilo. Foxtrot. 6 characters. A military authentication code. The kind that changes daily and is only issued to active duty personnel with top-level clearance. The pause is shorter this time. Falcon 7 authentication valid. Ronan's eyes widen. Colonel Amethyst Reed, United States Air Force Combat Rescue. Confirmed identity. Welcome back, ma'am. The cockpit goes dead silent. Cassius, still strapped into the jump seat, looks like he's been punched in the stomach. His mouth opens, closes. No words come out. Ronan stares at Amethyst. You're a colonel. Was, Amethyst says. I'm on extended leave. Extended leave, Ronan repeats, dazed. You're on leave and you were sitting in coach. Budget cuts, Amethyst says dryly. Even colonels fly economy. The radio continues. A new voice, now deeper older, carrying the weight of command. Falcon 7, this is Colonel Maximus Hunt, Andrews Air Force Base Operations. We have your 6. Dover runway. 01 is foam ready. Crash crew standing by. You are cleared for single-engine visual approach. All airspace is yours. Copy Andrews actual, Amethyst says. Appreciate the assist. Ma'am, if you don't mind my asking, what the hell are you doing on a civilian flight? Long story, Colonel. Looking forward to hearing it when you're on the ground. Dover, you have priority 1. Godspeed, Falcon 7. Roger, out. Amethyst sets the handset down and refocuses on the instruments. In the cabin, the passengers are frozen, staring, trying to process what they just heard. Griffin lowers his phone slowly. She's real. She's actually real. Julius sinks into his seat, face pale. We tried to stop her. Oh God, we tried to stop her. Cassius in the cockpit closes his eyes. His entire worldview is collapsing in real time. Garrett catches Ivy's eye and nods once. Told you. Ivy picks up the intercom. Her voice when she speaks to the cabin is steady. Ladies and gentlemen, I need your attention. The person currently flying this aircraft is Colonel Amethyst Reed of the United States Air Force. She is one of the most decorated rescue pilots in American military history. You are in the best possible hands. Please remain seated and trust her completely. The cabin erupts, not in panic, but in something else. Relief, awe, and for some shame. But Amethyst doesn't hear it. She's already moving to the next problem, because the worst is still ahead. The storm isn't done with them. Amethyst watches the weather radar as the red blob shifts, twists, and begins to close around their position like a fist. They've been flying through a temporary gap, a window of clear air that's about to slam shut. Ronan, she says. Fuel state, 22 minutes. Distance to Dover, 25 nautical miles. About 18 minutes at current speed if we go direct. We can't go direct, Amethyst says, pointing at the radar. Look. Ronan looks. The path to Dover is blocked by a solid wall of red and magenta hail lightning wind, sheer everything you don't want to fly through. Then what do? We go through the eye. Ronan's face goes pale. The what? The eye of the storm. Amethyst taps the screen, indicating a circular void in the center of the weather system. It's calm in there. No wind, no hail. We descend through the eye spiral, down to 10,000 feet, then break out and make a straight-in approach to Dover. Ronan swallows. That's a fighter jet maneuver. We're flying a Boeing 737. I know what we're flying. Colonel, with all due respect, that maneuver has never been attempted in a commercial aircraft. The structural stress will be manageable if we stay below VMO and keep the descent rate smooth. Amethyst's voice is calm. Final. We don't have fuel for anything else. This is the only way. Ronan looks at her, really looks at her, and he realizes she's not guessing. She's not hoping. She's done this before. Maybe not in a 737, but in something close enough that she knows it's possible. Okay, he says. What do you need me to do? Monitor airspeed and vertical speed. Call out if we exceed limits. And pray the autopilot doesn't fight me. Ronan nods. Behind them, Cassius finally speaks, his voice small. This is suicide. Amethyst doesn't turn around. Then get off the plane. Cassius shuts up. The radio crackles. Commander Sawyer's voice tense, now urgent. Flight 492, Boston Center. Be advised, authentication protocol requires secondary confirmation. We need you to transmit your full security clearance code, or we'll be forced to scramble interceptors. Confirm immediately. Ronan's stomach drops. What does that mean? It means if I don't prove who I am, in the next 60 seconds, 2 F-16s are going to show up and escort us to the ground whether we want them to or not. Can you give them the code? Yes, but not while I'm flying. She glances at Ronan. You're going to have to do it. What I don't... Listen carefully. Amethyst recites a string of numbers and letters, 20 characters. No pauses, no repetition. Repeat it back. Ronan does, stumbling over 2 characters. She corrects him. Now transmit it, exactly as I said. Ronan grabs the radio hands, shaking, and repeats the code. His voice cracks halfway through. He clears his throat and finishes. The pause feels like an eternity. Then, Flight 492 code accepted. You're clear. No intercept. Fly safe, Colonel. Ronan exhales so hard he nearly passes out. In the cabin, Julius Thatcher is on his feet again. Face, red, voice shrill. This is illegal. She's commandeering a civilian aircraft. I demand. Garrett Sullivan steps into the aisle, blocking Julius's path. Sit down. You can't. Yes, I can. Garrett's voice is low, dangerous. You tried to get her kicked out of the cockpit. You called her unqualified, and now she's the only reason we're still in the air. So sit down, shut up, and let her work. Julius sputters, but he sits. Near the cockpit, Dr. Blake looks up from Captain Kane. Her face is grim. He's not breathing. Ivy rushes over with the medical kit. What do you need? A hospital 5 minutes ago. Dr. Blake resumes compressions, sweat pouring down her face. I don't know how much longer I can keep him alive. Amethyst hears it through the open cockpit door. She checks the distance to Dover again. 18 minutes. Too long. She makes a decision. Ronan, I'm taking us into the eye. Strap in tight. Wait now. Now. Amethyst disengages the autopilot. The plane jolts slightly as manual control takes over. She banks hard to the left, aiming for the circular void at the center of the storm. The turbulence hits immediately. The plane bucks, shudders. The single engine screams, thrust fluctuating as the airflow becomes chaotic. The wings flex so much Ronan can see them bending through the cockpit windows. Airspeed, Amethyst calls. 260 knots. VMO is 288. We're okay. Vertical speed. Minus 3,000 feet per minute. Holding steady. The plane enters the eye, and everything stops. The turbulence vanishes. The wind dies. The sun breaks through, casting golden light across the cockpit instruments. It's eerily, impossibly calm. Amethyst begins the spiral descent. Tight controlled circles, losing altitude fast but smoothly. The single engine hums. The airframe holds. Ronan watches the altimeter unwind. 30,000 feet. 25. 20. We're going to make it, he whispers. And then the fuel warning alarm sounds. Fuel low. 15 minutes remaining. Amethyst checks the distance. 12 nautical miles. They're not going to make it. Not unless she does something drastic. Ronan, she says quietly, when we break out of the eye, I'm going to cut power and glide. Glide, we're on one engine. One engine burns fuel. No engines don't. We'll fall out of the sky. No, Amethyst says. We'll land. Hold on. She pushes the nose down. The plane accelerates. The eye's edge rushes up to meet them, and in the cabin, passengers who thought the worst was over realize it's just beginning. The plane breaks through the eye wall. Instantly, the calm shatters. Wind slams into the fuselage from 3 directions at once. The single engine roars, fighting against forces it was never designed to handle alone. The airframe groans a deep metallic sound that makes passengers grip their armrests and pray. Amethyst cuts the throttle. What are you doing? Ronan's voice spikes. We need power. No, we need glide ratio. Amethyst's hands are steady on the yoke. One engine burns fuel we don't have. No engine gives us 15 more minutes of range. We'll fall. We'll descend. There's a difference. The nose drops. The altimeter starts unwinding faster. 10,000 feet, 9,500, 9,000. In the cabin, Passengers scream. The sensation of falling is unmistakable now. Stomach-lifting, nauseating, the kind of drop that makes your body scream, "This is wrong." Julius Thatcher unbuckles and lunges toward the cockpit door. "She's killing us," he shouts. "She's going to crash this plane." He grabs the door handle, twists. It's locked. He pounds on it with both fists. "Open this door. I'm a lawyer. I have rights." Garrett Sullivan moves fast. One hand clamps down on Julius's shoulder, spinning him around. The other catches his wrist mid-swing. "Touch that door again," Garrett says, voice low and dangerous, "and I'll break your wrist." Julius tries to pull free. Garrett doesn't let go. Ivy Chandler is there in seconds, stepping between them. "Mr. Thatcher, return to your seat immediately, or I will have you restrained." "She's murdering us." "She's saving us," Garrett snaps. "And you're going to sit down and shut up before I make you." Julius looks around for support. Griffin has his phone down. Mrs. Charity Weston is clutching her husband, sobbing quietly. No one's backing him up. Ivy grabs Julius by the arm and hauls him back to his seat. "Sit. Stay." Julius collapses into the chair, face-red hands shaking. Inside the cockpit, Amethyst is flying by feel. No engine thrust, no autopilot, just the control yoke, the rudder pedals, and 15 years of training that taught her how to land a plane when every system says it's impossible. The plane is a glider now. A 100-ton glider with one wing slightly heavier than the other, descending through turbulence that would rip apart anything less robust. "Airspeed," Amethyst says. 250 knots, Ronan calls out, voice shaking. "Descent rate 4,000 feet per minute." "Altitude 7,000 feet, passing through 6.5. Amethyst adjusts the trim. The nose lifts slightly. The descent rate slows to 3,000 feet per minute. Not ideal, but survivable. "Ronan," she says, her voice calm, almost conversational. "SOPs assume 2 engines. We don't have that luxury." For the first time since they entered the storm, she smiles. Just a faint curve at the corner of her mouth. Not joy, not relief, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing she's threading a needle most pilots would never attempt. Ronan stares at her. "You've done this before." "Not in a 737. "Then how?" "C-130, Afghanistan, 2019. 2 engines out, no hydraulics, 17 wounded soldiers in the cargo bay." She adjusts the yoke, compensating for a gust. "We made it. They're still alive because I didn't follow the SOP. Ronan swallows. "What happened to the plane?" "Totaled." But everyone walked away. The radio crackles. Commander Sawyer's voice tight, urgent. "Flight 492, confirm your engine status. We show 0 thrust." "Correct," Amethyst replies. "We're gliding." "You're what?" "Gliding. We'll have engine restart capability at 3,000 feet if needed. Until then, we're conserving fuel. Colonel..." Sawyer pauses, like he's trying to find words that won't sound insane. "That's not in the manual." "I know. If you lose altitude too fast, I won't." The confidence in her voice is absolute. Not arrogance, not bravado, just certainty. The kind that comes from having been here before and survived. Sawyer exhales. "Understood, Falcon 7. Dover is standing by. You're cleared for any approach you deem necessary." "Roger." Amethyst banks the plane gently to the left, lining up with the runway that's still 10 miles ahead. The weather radar shows a narrow corridor of clear air, barely wide enough for a commercial jet, but enough. "Ronan, when I call for engine restart, I need you to move fast. Fuel valve, open ignition sequence thrust to idle. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." She checks the altimeter. 4,000 feet. "Get ready. We're going in." Behind them, Cassius Harlan is silent. His face is pale, slick with sweat. His hands are still gripping the jump seat harness, but now they're not shaking with fear. They're shaking with shame. because he's finally truly understanding what he almost did. He almost stopped the only person on this plane who could save them. Dr. Blake looks up from Captain Kane. He's breathing. Barely. Pulse is weak but steady. If we land in the next 5 minutes, we will, Amethyst says. And somehow impossibly Ronan believes her. The plane descends through 3,000 feet. Amethyst's hand moves to the engine start panel. Ronan, engine restart. Now. Ronan flips switches in rapid succession. Fuel valve open. Ignition armed. Starter engaged. The left engine coughs, sputters, then roars to life. Thrust returns. The plane shutter stabilizes, and the descent slows. 2,000 feet, 1,500, 1,000. The runway appears through the rain, a long strip of wet concrete lined with foam emergency vehicles flashing red and blue along both sides. Gear down, Amethyst says. Ronan pulls the landing gear lever. 3 green lights, locked. Flaps 30. Flaps 30. The plane slows. The nose drops. Amethyst's hands move with surgical precision, adjusting for wind, for weight, for the fact that they're landing on one engine with almost no fuel and a pilot who's been unconscious for the last 40 minutes. 500 feet, Ronan calls. 400. 300. The wheels kiss the runway. It's the smoothest landing Ronan has ever felt. No bounce, no skid, just a gentle settling of weight onto the landing gear, followed by the roar of thrust reversers and the squeal of brakes. The plane rolls to a stop 2/3 of the way down the runway, surrounded by foam and flashing lights. For a moment, no one moves. No one speaks. Then the cabin erupts. People are crying, laughing, hugging strangers. The toddler in 7B is clapping. Garrett Sullivan is on his feet, saluting toward the cockpit, even though he knows no one inside can see him. Ivy picks up the intercom. Her voice is steady, professional, but there's emotion underneath relief so profound it's almost painful. Ladies and gentlemen, we have landed safely at Dover Air Force Base. On behalf of the crew, I want to thank you for your patience and cooperation. And I want you to know. She pauses, swallows. You're in the hands of Colonel Amethyst Reed, one of the most decorated rescue pilots in United States military history. She has saved 19 aircraft in combat zones around the world. Today she saved us. Please remain seated while emergency personnel board the aircraft. The cabin falls silent. Then someone starts clapping. It spreads row by row, seat by seat, until the entire plane is applauding. Griffin Porter lowers his phone. His live stream has 40,000 viewers. The comments are scrolling too fast to read, but one keeps repeating, Lection Falcon 7. Cassius Harlan, still in the jump seat, buries his face in his hands. His shoulders shake. When he finally looks up, his eyes are red. I'm sorry, he whispers. I'm so sorry. Amethyst doesn't turn around. She's running the shutdown checklist, methodically flipping switches, securing systems. Apology accepted, she says quietly. Now sit down and let the paramedics do their job. The cockpit door opens. Paramedics rush in, surrounding Captain Kane. Dr. Blake steps back, letting them take over. They load him onto a stretcher and carry him out. Colonel Maximus Hunt appears in the doorway, tall, gray-haired, wearing a flight suit with patches that tell a story of 30 years in the Air Force. He looks at Amethyst, salutes. Welcome to Dover, Colonel. Amethyst returns the salute, then unbuckles and stands. Her legs are steady. Her hands aren't shaking. She's done this too many times to fall apart now. Thank you for the assist, sir. That was some of the best flying I've ever seen, Hunt says. Spiral descent through a storm single-engine glide approach. Hell, I wouldn't have tried that in an F-16. Neither would I, sir, but we didn't have a choice. Hunt nods. Then he steps aside. There's someone outside who wants to meet you. Amethyst walks through the cabin. Passengers reach out to touch her arm, her shoulder, whispering thanks. She nods to each one, but doesn't stop. At row 7, Garrett Sullivan holds out the coin. "I think this is yours, ma'am." Amethyst takes it. The brass is warm from his hand. She flips it over, seeing the inscription on the back, USAF Combat Rescue, Falcon 7, 19 saves. 19, Garrett says. "Guess you'll need a new coin." Amethyst looks at him, sees the veteran's cap, the recognition in his eyes. "C-130s, she asks. "Cargo, 96 to 04. "Good years, the best." He salutes. "Honor to fly with you, Colonel." She returns it, then pockets the coin and walks toward the exit. Behind her, Julius Thatcher is slumped in his seat, staring at nothing. Mrs. Charity Weston is crying into her husband's shoulder, not from fear anymore, but from shame. And Cassius Harlan watches Amethyst leave, knowing he'll never forget this moment. The moment he learned that competence has no uniform, no price tag, no skin color, just results, the C-130. Hercules is on fire. Not the whole plane, just Engine 3 spewing black smoke and trailing flames as it carves through a sandstorm so thick the windshield is opaque. Inside the cockpit, Captain Amethyst Reed call sign Falcon 7 is flying by instruments alone. No visual reference, no horizon, just the artificial horizon display and the voice of her co-pilot screaming numbers. Engine 3 shut down. Engine 4, losing power. We're down to 2. In the cargo bay, 17 soldiers lie on stretchers. IED casualties, burns, shrapnel. 2 are critical. If they don't reach the field hospital in the next 15 minutes, they'll die. But the field hospital is on the other side of the sandstorm, and the sandstorm is a wall of wind and dust 50,000 feet tall. "We can't go around," the co-pilot says. "We don't have fuel." "Then we go through," Amethyst says. "The manual says, I don't care what the manual says. Those soldiers don't have time for a manual." She disengages the autopilot, takes manual control, and begins a spiral descent, tight controlled circles through the center of the storm where the winds are calmer, where the plane can lose altitude without being torn apart. The engines scream. The airframe shudders. Alarms blare, but she holds the descent. Smooth, steady, counting altitude by feel more than by instruments. 3,000 feet, 2,000, 1,000. They break through the bottom of the storm, and the runway appears a strip of dirt and gravel that looks more like a hiking trail than an airfield. She lands hard. The landing gear groans. One tire blows. But they're down. They're alive. All 17 soldiers survive. The plane is declared a total loss, scrapped for parts. But Falcon 7 gets a medal and a reputation, the kind of reputation that follows you for the rest of your career. Ronan is staring at Amethyst, piecing it together. "That's how you knew," he says. "The spiral descent, the single-engine approach. You've done it before." Amethyst nods. Afghanistan, 2019. 2 engines out, 17 wounded. Did they make it? All of them. And the plane didn't. She unbuckles her harness. But that's why they build more planes. They don't build more pilots. Ronan swallows. "How many times have you done this? Saved a plane that shouldn't have been savable." Amethyst picks up the coin from the console. 19 saves. 19 times, she says. She looks out the cockpit window at the emergency crews surrounding the plane, the foam-covered runway, the flashing lights. "This is number 20. Ronan doesn't know what to say, so he just nods. Because some people don't need words. They just need to be trusted. The paramedics clear the cabin first. Captain Kane is loaded into an ambulance, sirens wailing as it speeds toward the base hospital. Dr. Blake goes with him, still monitoring his vitals, refusing to leave until she's sure he's stable. The passengers disembark slowly, shakily, many of them stopping to thank Amethyst as they pass. She stands near the exit, accepting handshakes, nods, Even a few tearful hugs from people who moments ago didn't think she belonged on the plane. Cassius Harlan is the last to leave the cockpit. He walks down the aisle like a man in a trance. When he reaches Amethyst, he stops. His face is gray. His hands are trembling. His voice cracks. I need to say something. Amethyst looks at him, waits. I was wrong. The words come out choked broken. I was so wrong. I judged you. I tried to stop you. He sinks to his knees on the cabin floor, tears streaming down his face. You saved my life, my wife's life, everyone on this plane, and I tried to stop you because you didn't look like someone who could. Amethyst crouches down, meeting his eyes. Mr. Harlan, she says quietly, people judge. It's what they do. The question is what they do after they realize they were wrong. I don't know how to make this right. You don't have to make it right. You just have to do better next time. She stands, offers him a hand. He takes it, and she pulls him to his feet. Now go take care of your wife. Cassius nods, unable to speak, and stumbles off the plane. 3 hours later, Dover AFB Operations Center. The FAA has opened an investigation. Unauthorized assumption of pilot in command duties. The investigator says reading from a tablet, violation of commercial aviation protocols, use of military frequencies without prior clearance. Colonel Maximus Hunt, sitting across the table from Amethyst, doesn't look concerned. She was on leave, he says. Active duty military personnel are permitted to assist in civilian emergencies under the Good Samaritan Aviation Act. Her credentials are valid. Her actions were lawful. She doesn't hold a commercial pilot's license. She holds a military pilot's license with ratings that exceed any commercial qualification. And in case you missed it, she just saved 312 lives. The investigator hesitates. The FAA will need to file a report. File whatever you want, Hunt says. But if you try to penalize her, the Pentagon will make it very clear who the real hero is here. The investigator closes his tablet. I'll recommend no action. Smart move. Smart. ISIS 6 hours later, Dover AFB hangar. Griffin Porter's video has gone viral. 50 million views and climbing. The hashtag #SheechFalcon7 is trending worldwide. The comments are brutal, but not toward Amethyst. That businessman tried to stop her because she was black. Disgusting. Julius Thatcher lawyer who tried to arrest the woman saving his life. Hope he loses every case. Cassius Harlan paying $15,000 for business class and still needing a woman from Coach to save him. Karma. Griffin himself has posted an apology video sitting in a hotel room near Dover, eyes red. I was wrong, he says into the camera. I filmed her. I doubted her. I thought she was nobody. Turns out she's one of the most decorated pilots in the Air Force. I'm sorry, and I'm grateful, because without her, I wouldn't be here to make this video. The video gets 20 million views in 12 hours. 6 months later, FAA headquarters, Washington, D.C. The new regulation is announced at a press conference. Effective immediately. The FAA administrator says all U.S. commercial flights will implement an emergency military liaison protocol. This allows off-duty military pilots with current credentials to assist in cockpit emergencies without commercial certification. A reporter raises her hand. Is this because of the Dover incident? This is because of Colonel Amethyst Reed, the administrator says, who reminded us that competence doesn't require a uniform. It requires skill training and courage. And sometimes it requires us to get out of the way. 9 months later, Pentagon ceremony. Captain Desmond Kane stands at the podium, reading from a handwritten letter. Colonel Reed, he says, voice steady. I don't remember much from that day, but I remember your voice. Calm, certain, And I remember waking up in a hospital bed alive because you refused to let me die. He folds the letter. I'm retiring from commercial aviation, but I'll spend the rest of my life grateful that you were in seat 7C. The room erupts in applause. Amethyst stands at attention in her dress uniform, no longer a colonel. As of this morning, she's Brigadier General Amethyst Reed, the youngest black woman to hold that rank in U.S. Air Force history, and the pilot who saved not 19 aircraft, but 20. One year later, online news cycle. Cassius Harlan's investment firm filed for bankruptcy. 80% of his clients left. His wife divorced him. He lost custody of his children. He now works at a used car dealership in Delaware, taking the bus to work every day. In an interview with a local paper, he says only this: I learned that privilege isn't achievement, respect isn't inheritance, and competence has nothing to do with where you sit on a plane. Julius Thatcher was disbarred after a disciplinary review. His law license was revoked for conduct unbecoming. Mrs. Charity Weston wrote a public apology letter that was published in the Washington Post. She now volunteers with organizations that promote diversity in aviation. And Griffin Porter became a documentary filmmaker. His first film, Falcon 7, The Woman Who Saved Flight 492, won an award at Sundance. All the proceeds went to scholarships for women and minorities pursuing careers in aviation. The Boeing 737 sits in the hangar, battered but intact. Foam still clings to the landing gear. Scorch marks from the engine fire streak the right side of the fuselage. Amethyst stands beside it alone, turning the coin over in her fingers. The brass catches the hangar lights glinting. Falcon 7, 19 saves. She'll need a new one made, 20 saves now. Footsteps echo across the concrete. Colonel Maximus Hunt approaches holding a secure phone. General Hayes is on the line, he says. She says it's urgent. Amethyst takes the phone. Colonel Reed. Congratulations on your promotion, General. A woman's voice says crisp, commanding. But I'm afraid your leave just ended. What's the situation? Downed aircraft, hostile waters, South China Sea. We need someone who can fly through hell and bring people home. Sound familiar? Amethyst looks at the coin in her hand. Then at the plane behind her, proof that impossible is just another word for difficult. When do I leave? 1800 hours. Transport's waiting. Copy. She hands the phone back to Hunt. Guess you won't be retiring anytime soon, he says. Guess not. She pockets the coin and starts walking toward the exit. Behind her, the hangar radio crackles to life frequency 121.5, the guard channel. Falcon 7 copy, static, then silence. Amethyst stops, smiles faintly. Looks like number 21, she murmurs. She steps out into the night. The runway stretches ahead, wet from rain lights flickering in the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, a jet engine spools up, and No General Amethyst Reed walks toward it. Because the sky doesn't care what you look like, where you sit, or how much your ticket cost. It only cares if you can fly. Final image. The coin sits on the cockpit console of a C-17 transport spinning slowly under the instrument lights. The number 19 catches the glow, then fades as the coin settles. The radio hisses. Falcon 7, you are cleared for departure. And the screen fades to black.